think we can all agree that we live in a democracy, and we certainly have no shortage of elections at the moment. But for the last 20 years, only 2/3 of eligible voters have actually taken part on polling day. Young voter participation in Britain is among the lowest in the EU. This isn't a new problem, but it is taking on new dimensions. Britain is leaving the EU thanks to the powerful lobby of older white voters who vote in numbers. Polling indicates that 73% of 18 to 24-year-olds, 73% of black Brits were pro-Remain. But these voters have failed to have a proportionate influence on the outcome because they're the same groups who don't vote. I'm almost always in favour of influencing people to change behaviour through incentives, not coercion. But desperate times call for desperate measures. There are many complex reasons why large numbers of people in our society don't vote. But we can't change those problems until they do. It's time to make voting compulsory.
Afua, can we just work our way through some of those statistics and see if I've got them right? 73% of 18 to 24-year-olds voted to remain. 73% of black voters voted to remain. This is from an exit poll done on the day of the referendum by the Conservative Lord Ashcroft. So,
and just to add to that, because there is no official data on the demographics.
But that's
voting.
as a proportion of people who turned up to vote,
yes.
obviously. So in that age group, what do you suppose the percentage was that did turn up to vote?
Of the
18 to 24.
No, it was,
there is no official record.
In the referendum, the indications are it was higher than usual.
Yeah, OK, that's very smart.
Why don't you... 60 which? 69,
64.
I think?
64 seems to be, right.
Yeah.
So, effectively, a third couldn't be bothered.
Yeah.
Couldn't be bothered. So
well, that's one way of characterising it, but they didn't vote. You can't say that you know why they didn't vote.
Why didn't they go then?
Well, I don't know either.
This great thing that if you listen to Nick Clegg and Tim Farron, her best buds now, her new best buds, that'll be a fun dinner party. I don't want to miss that one. This is going to influence the rest of their lives. They couldn't give a damn.
Well, I have some insight as to why
I want to hear that insight.
Vote.
But lastly, if you're actually saying to them that even if a plague on all your houses, I don't like the Tory, I don't like the Labour, I don't like UKIP, I don't like Lib Dem, I don't like... You're going to force them to vote for somebody.
Yes. No, well, you can spoil your ballot.
Or you can act like somebody who is emotionally or educationally challenged and put your line through it.
There are reasons why people spoil their ballot.
I think that's so wrong. Can I tell you why? Because I think it serves politicians right to know that in some instances they will get less votes than a jazz trombone-playing tap dancer on Britain's Got Talent. They need to know how, in some instances, how unpopular they are, how their policies don't count, how they are failing to register with young people, because if they don't know that, how else are they going to address it?
But why are you assuming that if everybody voted, all politicians would necessarily get more votes?
Because you're being forced, you're being corralled into doing so. What are you going to do, fine them if they don't?
There's no evidence, first of all. This isn't about outcomes. There's no evidence that compulsory voting actually preferences one party or one political ideology.
So an 18-year-old doesn't vote. What happens to him or her?
He doesn't vote. So
no. But what's the punishment?
Oh, you mean in my proposal? Well, you can look at other countries that do it. And actually, I have some stats here. So there are, I think, about 20 countries, maybe more, that have compulsory voting. Not all of them enforce it. Australia has compulsory voting, and turnout in the last general election in Australia was 95%.
Right.
And the punishment for not voting was a $20 fine. That's around £11 in UK money. And there's also Brazil. So they have compulsory voting, an average of 80% turnout, again, much higher than the UK, and a more draconian punishment in Brazil that you get banned from getting loans or having a passport. I'm not saying I advocate that.
So just lastly, because I must yield the floor, you're telling me the way to get 18-year-olds engaged in politics is to fine them if they don't vote?
I'm not necessarily saying a fine, Nick.
Well, what then?
Well, you can have other sanctions, like, for example...
They don't get a library book?
You get, you know, a discount on your national insurance. You think
an 18-year-old gives a flying fig about that?
You know what, Nick? You asked me why they don't vote, right? And I'll open up in a second.
Of course.
A lot of young people I speak to, and I do countless events with young people about voting and participating generally. A lot of them say, "I don't see the point. You know, I voted once; it didn't make any difference. We still had tuition fees introduced. We still had our educational maintenance allowance. You know, we've got no hope of ever owning a home. We're going to be working till we're 70." They have reasons, and they say, "I don't feel like my vote makes a difference." That is the perfect vicious circle, because then they don't think there's any point taking part. They don't vote. Politicians don't make policies with them in mind because there are no consequences at the ballot box, and then they feel more disillusioned, and then they don't vote. And that's why we need to break the cycle, and that's why I'm suggesting something constructive.
Well, I mean, it's been compulsory voting is 100 years in Australia. Do you really think you could introduce it here and it would have an impact?
Yes.
You see, I don't see how you can force people to do it now. It's not part of the culture.
Do you remember what happened when we tried to fine parents for taking their kids on holiday? That guy snarled us, took his kids to Disney World. We are very resistant as a country to being told what to do. I completely understand where Afua's coming from, because as things stand, we see the evidence. The older you are, the more higher percentage of people who vote. The younger you are, and BME. The lower the percentage. So, in fact, what we have is a system which enforces a gerontocracy. It's a government by the old, for the old.
Do you know, I'm quite surprised at you, because you're a big champion of civil liberties, and compulsory voting is a violation of civil liberties. It actually infringes people's right to be apolitical.
I never thought I'd hear you sitting here as the human rights champion.
Well, I'm saying it infringes... Now, listen...
She's joining Liberty next week.
From where I'm sitting, not voting is shameful. Not be too dramatic about it. People died for it. And actually, I would rather people not vote. Those people who can't be bothered to go to the polling station, those people who can't be bothered... No, listen, let me finish. Those people who can't be bothered to ascertain the information that will help them make an informed decision on who runs their country. I'd rather those people didn't vote. Really, I would. But I think, shouldn't people in a free country, which is what you're always banging on about, don't they have a fundamental right to be left alone to live their life within the law, but not?
You're describing this as a society where everyone can just do what they like. We don't have any choice about paying tax. You don't have any choice about sending your children to school. You have no choice about jury duty. There are many obligations. With rights come responsibilities. No, well, you have to educate them at home. You have you can't choose whether to educate your children.
No, it's true.
There are other things that we regard as such important civic responsibilities that they're mandatory. I think that the only reason voting isn't one of them is because it served the interests of the political class to exclude young people. You're characterising this as they can't be bothered. They're lying in. They can't be asked to get out of bed.
That is a very crude caricature. Why they didn't want to give the 16-year-olds vote, Carol, because they might vote for the Labour Party.
But why didn't
that was out.
If they cared so much about staying in Europe, why didn't they get out there and vote? Every time I saw someone young interviewed, they said, we're going to stay in Europe. And then you found out they couldn't be bothered. It's what Nick says. If you can't be bothered, and if you don't have the information in your head to make an informed decision, don't vote.
The difference
they also changed the system on registration. So overnight, students found themselves not registered to vote unless they went individually. Now, why did they do that?
Oh, I can't imagine.
Why
did
they do
students are
that?
lefties.
The students happen to not support them.